Tanuyap. Quiget Yuans Quiansna. Hi everybody, my name is Quiget Yuans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanis clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations.
You are listening to CFRO Community Radio Station. The upcoming show, Conscious Living Radio, is a program that explores frontiers of consciousness, spirituality, personal growth, emerging paradigms in psychology, health, science, and innovative philosophies that reflect commitment to the advancement of individual, social, and global transformation.
Hello, and welcome to Conscious Living, where we air every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on 100.5 FM CFRO in Vancouver. My name is Marc Caron, and today I'm really happy to introduce our guest for the program. His name is Michael Kraus. He's got a very colorful history in the world of being a cook and a pastry chef and all sorts of great things he's done in, what we would kind of consider the previous life of when we're in this conscious living world. And he is now working to really bring world peace, vision, action, to creating a better world for us as individuals and as a collective humanity. He works as a social media manager with Unify, a global organization known for its record-breaking meditations around the world. And he's doing a lot of great things with a new program he's created called Awaken. So I'm not going to talk too much longer about an introduction for Michael, and we're going to come right down and introduce him right now. So, Michael, welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mark, and always a pleasure to be in your presence, and an honor to be here.
Well, thanks, Michael. It's, we've talked about doing a show and kind of talking about the things that we do. You recently just came off of hosting the, what was it?
Earth Day.
It was Earth Day on April 22nd. Michael hosted a global event here from Hubcast Studios, really talking about, it's about time that we do something in the world for, the environment. Not just the environment, it's about our collective consciousness and humanity and how we work together to create a more peaceful and harmonious life. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to this kind of line of work, as we all do. We've all got our story for sure, right?
Yeah, thank you. And you spoke into my previous lifetime career in the hospitality industry, and how I would really like to sum it up. Hospitality to me is a genuine interest in the well-being of other people. And that to me was a little bit of a stepping stone in order to perhaps, if I want to call it, evolve my consciousness, but learn more about energy, frequencies, vibrations, and the impact that I can have on another human being through the medium of food and through the medium of hospitality, and ultimately through service to another human being. And long story short, I was born in Germany. I made an apprenticeship as a pastry chef. I made an apprenticeship as a chef. Then I thought, well, who am I actually cooking for and baking for? And so I felt the need to go into the front end of the house and made another apprenticeship as a server. And I recognized the impact that I can have on other people simply being in service. And I think, like I said before, a genuine interest in the well-being of other people, and how that connection then is being received and recognized. And then I came to Canada almost 30 years ago. I was working at some restaurants here in Vancouver, opened up my own cafe. And that's when I really became more and more aware of what it actually is, hospitality. And I think one of the greatest compliments that I've ever gotten from one of our guests was, thank you for being here in the community. So it was not just about the quality of food, but the and the style of service and the attention to detail, but it was literally about creating a community hub and being there within the community, for the community, in service of the community, and part of the community. And we had young children come in and families, and the outside was always a little bit of a dog park and a bicycle park. And I remember one of the most memorable experiences within that was a family with a young child, and I think his name was Sasha, or still is Sasha. And I think at the time he was probably 4 or 5 years old, and he came in, and every time he came in, I made him freshly squeezed orange juice, and we had this orange press, so it wasn't pre-made. It was cutting up oranges, and over time we created the ritual that whenever he came in, he came around the counter, and I put him onto my arm, and we pressed oranges together. And over time, it was such a memorable experience that when he started walking through the door, he would literally open up his arms and run towards me, and I would open up my arms and embraced him. And it didn't matter how busy the store was. It didn't matter how many customers were there in line. To me, that was the connection that was most important, where the energy in the room actually happened, and also where it then rippled out towards other people and touched their hearts and brought more consciousness towards them. I also opened up the first truly sustainable and organic catering company in Vancouver, and that was in 2008. And I had to quickly learn with the economic downturn that was not the right thing to do at the time. It was the right thing to do, but the economic impact that it had on customers was as such that I found myself working 12 to 14, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at the time I was married, and my wife said to me, there was one day where somebody was asking me for my name, and I couldn't remember my name. And she said to me, well, you're going to have a choice. Either you're going to kill yourself working, literally killing yourself working, or you're going to have to make changes. And so what I had to do, and which was a blessing really, is I had to declare bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy, decided that I was going to get myself a van and a camper trailer, and at the time I was asking, well, what would it be that would make my heart sing? And at the time it was to raise awareness for animal rights. So we set out on a tour across Canada to raise awareness for animal rights. We landed up in the Kootenays on an intentional farm, and that's where this whole endeavor really took a turn and shifted the consciousness from animal rights to then organic farming and community living and connection with the land. And from there, it ever expanded into learning about energy, frequencies, vibrations, and the impact of such in the world, and what I can specifically contribute. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been working as the director of social media for Unify, a global organization that advocates world peace through inner peace. And Unify started the first global synchronized meditation in 2012. And throughout the year, at specific occasions, whether it's Earth Day or Women's Day or Peace Day, we hold synchronized meditations for the purpose of raising consciousness, but also to share the energy of peace around the planet. And now I'm sitting here. Thank you.
I love that now you're sitting here. Well, you know, there's a lot there really to unpack, Michael, and you nailed a couple of things that are really important to me. And the first thing that really struck me in your story was you talk about service and how important service is, and being of service and being in service. And it's something that, you know, being in retail and the service industry, you know, for a big part of my life, it was all about, you know, helping people get what they want, not necessarily what I want to give them, right? You know, so it was serving in a different way. And I thought that was really important. And, you know, you talk about building community, and I thought it was kind of funny when you talked about a dog park and a bicycle park. I've been thinking of people parking their dogs, like hitching horses back in the Wild West. But I think, you know, when you're talking about organic food and community and being of service, and in knowing you now for the past year, I really see that in you. And I think it's important that we all, you know, really work to be our authentic selves and not just be on that hamster wheel chasing something that is kind of fabricated in our minds and through society over time for just success and achievement and accumulating stuff. So, you know, Stephen Gray and I from Spirit Plant Medicine, we call it following the golden thread. So now when we do what it is we do, you know, it's not about forcing things to happen. It's following that natural path with grace and ease and, you know, really enjoying life as we move forward on our mission. So let me ask you this. What does conscious living mean to you?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Conscious living to me starts with the recognition that we're all one. Within that is then the choice of action as to how I'm going to relate and interrelate with everything around me. Is it within kindness? Is it within softness? Is it within empathy? And how am I able to feel the energy of everything around me, and specifically with human beings? So if I consider that we are an energy field, how is the energy that is projecting outwards from me connecting with another person's energy, and how does that ripple effect? It's almost like when you put a pebble into the water and it will hit the shore, the water will come back. So there is this energetic interaction between me and everything else. And truly becoming aware of that and choosing kindness within that. I think that to me is conscious living.
That's, you know, beautifully said. And I think there was a quote that someone once said, and they were talking about when you're conscious, you respond, and when you're unconscious, we react. And it took a moment and it sunk in, because I was able to see that within myself and just within life, you know, the times I'd react, being triggered, versus the time I would respond. And over my course and path of personal growth and development, you know, it was this process which I think a lot of people don't necessarily take the time to really do that self-study and look at ourselves and why do we believe what we believe? What do we believe? You know, what do we value? What's important? How do we want to be seen in the world, so that we consciously make a decision? Like when you talk about, you know, being heartfelt and being mindful of the energy and interacting and being of service, you know, there comes a level of conscious thought that comes with that, you know, at some point, you know, especially if we're on the path of personal growth and development, where we have to start shifting, you know, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're always responding and always super conscious. We're human beings. We do get triggered. We have these things buried in our unconscious or subconscious in our body. There's many ways these things get triggered, but it's going down that path and being conscious in terms of the words we use, how we interact, so that, you know, we are treating others not just the way we want to be treated, but the way they want to be treated. And I think that there's a powerful message in that, because you might want to be treated one way, and if I don't like that way and you treat me the way you want to be treated, it may not resonate. But when we actually listen and we're present with an individual, we can have that opportunity to treat them that way and respond and interact. And when you talk about loving kindness, right, and compassion, it's a totally different life, right?
How I would like to respond is by recognizing I can only speak from my experience, recognizing my obstacle that made me not conscious at the time, and I don't want to sound whatever, and that to me, and I don't want to say I'm conscious, because that is whatever is consciousness. But during my period of growth, the biggest obstacle for me was alcohol. And I stopped drinking. When you talk about reacting versus responding, I recognized within myself that when I drank alcohol, I was reacting. And I stopped drinking alcohol 9 years ago, and I recognized within myself that I've removed that obstacle that allowed me to be more in the presence of response and not having to react, because alcohol put me into that position of being angry or being challenging or being condescending or being not my true self. So I had to remove that, and it was one of the best things that I've ever done for myself, not just for my well-being, but also for the well-being of other people.
Well, congratulations on that. 9 years is a long time, and you know, a lot of people do struggle with alcohol, so you know, just kudos to you for being on that path. I know it's not easy for a lot of people. So.
Yeah, and it actually was easier than I thought it would be. And it's not that I was a heavy drinker, but I did have a certain level of alcohol on a daily basis, and that meant, for me, it meant 3 or 4 beer and to be a little bit tipsy. And it only took about a couple of weeks for me to recognize what it actually meant to be sober, what it meant to be present in any situation. And the reason, or one of the reasons why I stopped drinking alcohol, was the fact that I joined a relationship with a woman that had 3 children at the time. And the children were 6, 8, and 10. And I made that commitment to myself that if I'm going to be part of that family in the future, my responsibility is to be able to be fully aware in any moment if there is any emergency situation with the children at night or at any time of the day, that I need to be able to be there in support and not having to worry whether I can drive or not drive, and so that was the spark that triggered it. And then after about 2 weeks, I started to recognize how much clearer my thoughts were, how much more connected I was to everything else, and use that as a fuel to stay on that path, because the longer in my opinion, that's just my experience, the longer you get away from alcohol, the deeper your connection and your relationship to everything around you is going to become. And so that to me was the fuel to like, wow, yeah, and there is within that there is also certain obstacles, and that have to come, that call it shame or call it and sometimes we drink alcohol to feel more confident, or specifically I think alcohol is also a big factor in intimacy in our current age. Excuse me. That we want to liberate ourselves, we want to remove the boundaries of being scared really to show up who we truly are. And so within intimacy, then that was an interesting experience, because for many years, alcohol was part of being intimate with a woman. And so having to remove that from myself and being able to show up authentically also allowed me to then dive deeper into that connection with a woman and feeling the energetic exchange rather than being it blurry and feeling.
Well, it certainly dulls the senses and some awareness for sure.
Yeah.
Right? You know, when it comes down to relating in so many different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. So let's talk about some of this work you're doing. You know, Unify, I've gotten to know Unify over the past while and the great work that they're doing. You're quite active in terms of, you know, the World Peace Movement, you know, part of Earth Day. What's going on there? Because I know you've got a project that you're working on as well. But let's talk about, what do you think the world really needs right now? We see war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. We've got what's happening in the Gaza Strip in the Middle East. You know, there's a lot of craziness happening in the world right now. And I've always said, you know, with the amount of wisdom and knowledge and resources and resourcefulness we have on this planet, it strikes me as, you know, to be a very sad state of affairs that we're still having all of this unrest. So what do you think's happening? What do you think we need to do? And how do we act specifically as individuals of 9 billion people on this planet, right? How do we as an individual make a difference?
I think the key to moving forward in terms of transformation of humanity, or what I would want to call liberation of humanity, is singled up in one word, and that is unify. And that is the piece that really attracted me to the organization, and I knew the people behind it, and I knew their intention and their engagement in order to build community and energetically connect people around the planet with a vision for peace. What I see right now in my experience is a world that is conquered and divided. I think there's so much polarity going on right now that we've literally forgotten that the light that is shining within each and one of us, that we were born with, that dream of peace and harmony and safety and security, that dream is literally burning within each and one of us. And it seems that through the polarity, we're reacting. We're not responding towards one another. We're reacting, and it could be the smallest trigger that creates a negative ripple effect. And what I see is that we need to organize ourselves as effectively as those who love peace. And there is Martin Luther King's quote, "Those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war." And I believe that this is the great task of our current times. And how can we do that without judgment across boundaries and belief system and age and gender, and how can we recognize that we're all part of one living, breathing organism? And so in that sense, we are already unified, and yet we're all pieces of the puzzle that need to come together to create the picture of what the world and our future is going to look like. And I hope did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's certainly, part of the process. And I think that, as we all start, kind of waking up to what's happening in the world and being aware of ourselves in it becomes a big part of that process. I guess my question is, and it comes back to the quote you referred to from Martin Luther King, how do we inspire and encourage each other and the masses, because it's the majority of people, I think, want peace, and the minority are the ones at war and dysfunction and control and oppression and things of that nature. What do you think needs to happen specifically for a peaceful movement, people who love peace, to make that difference?
I think it first and foremost starts within ourselves. It comes from an understanding that we're all connected, that we're all pieces of a greater universe, and then our actions and all our relations outwards, and that starts with our friends, with our families, with communities, and then connecting communities across the planet and towards a greater goal. And one of the things also specifically is to actually determine what a vision for a better world or a vision for peace actually looks like and feels like. And I think it's when we talk about peace is not just the absence of war and violence. Peace is a lot more. Peace is a recognition of our interconnectedness, our relationships, and I almost think peace is tangible. Like there is a you walk into a temple or a church or a mosque or a holy site or a sacred site, and you can feel it. There is something within it that is perhaps unexplainable, or at least I can't.
Well, it's energy, right? Because
it's
everything
energy.
is vibration, everything is energy. So peace has its own energetic vibration. And as a great example, when you walk into a church, when you walk into a temple, it's a very different feeling than if you walk into a Walmart or some crazy establishment, a bar or pub or anything like that. It's a tangibly noticeable difference. So
So then how can we take that energy that we all know it, we've all, or most of us have experienced that. And to me that is also a recognition to the connection to God, the Creator, the Divine, whatever name you want to put towards it. How can we take that energy and take it outside the church and the temple and the mosques and have that energy within the city centers, within intersections and within town halls and parks and beaches, and how can we become aware of that and move it outside of a construct of of a building?
Well, part of me thinks a big part of it is the curiosity of personal growth, self-awareness, self-realization, self-actualization, right? Where I think so many of us have been indoctrinated into ways of thinking and being, kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, this conditioning that happens. And so I think we have to become curious, become young again, and start asking questions, start looking at what lights us up versus being controlled by outside forces. And for speaking for myself, it was just a path. It's a path of always continuous and never-ending growth. You know, in nature, when something stops growing, it basically dies, right? So it's about that growth and that evolution. And I think there sometimes becomes a resistance because we've been conditioned to be so busy, to go, to achieve, to accumulate things, and we lose sight of those moments of just, you know, to meditate, even to be at peace, to sit in stillness and quiet. And I can speak for myself. There was a day I always needed to have a TV on or a radio on or music or something happening. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be just with myself. And as time went on and, you know, my life changed, I had many different experiences and things that brought me to that place where I love silence. I love stillness. I love nature. And you know, if I'm coaching or talking to people, and, you know, friends and family, acquaintances and things, and they'll talk about how erratic and sporadic and crazy their life is. And it's like, well, I'll ask them the question, do you meditate? And it's like, oh, no, I can't meditate. I can't stop the thoughts. And I personally believe in the experiences, that's part of the process, is to sit in that silence. And meditation doesn't mean always sitting and, you know, doing things. It's being quiet and being still, especially if you can be in nature and just be a human being versus a human doing. And I think that that's an important part of that process. It comes with breath, you know, learning to breathe properly and be able to calm our nervous system in a good way. And I think that it's a path that we need to shift. We need to interrupt that pattern of life and part of society and culture so we can all have that opportunity to just
Yeah, it's to me it's about unlearning, and then it's about learning again, and it's about being in the present moment. And being in the present moment, the easiest is when there is stillness around you, and when you can, like you said, focus on your breath and breathe in and breathe out, and then from there is how can you take that stillness of the moment, and there is no stillness. There is everything is in the universe is moving and vibrating, and so for us to think perhaps that we're going to be sitting there and be still and nothing is going on is also not, it can't be, because everything in the universe is alive.
So then let me ask you this. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, does it still make a noise?
It does. And so it is about being present, and to me meditation is listening to God, listening to the universe, and praying is talking to God and talking to the universe. And so how can you, when I say unlearn what we've been taught, or unlearn what we haven't been taught, and start applying that in recognition how that actually expands your consciousness, and then taking that which you might learn within stillness or in the forest or in a park or a mountaintop, and take that and bring it into the city. And so I've been to India 3 times, and I don't know if you've ever been to India. There's a lot going on. There is a lot in terms of colors, in terms of noise, in terms of in terms of traffic, and earth is different, and the fruits and the vegetables, and it's a visual stimulation through all the senses. And the last time I went to India, I thought, how can I find the stillness within all of that? And I think that is really almost to be the eye of the storm. That is our responsibility right now, is to be grounded, to be in the present moment, to recognize whatever is going on, and perhaps feel it, and then respond out of that knowing as to what is necessary in the moment. And meditation is the pathway to it.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And, it's something I learned on my journey is, was the phrase state management. It sounds a little left brain, but it's how do we control our state, our emotional state, our physical state, our spiritual state, so that we can be, even when things are going crazy around you and there's lots of chaos or things happening, how do we remain centered so we can make a better decision? We can make better choices. Because with that statement came, I love quotes, where it's like, no good decisions are made from a state of stress, chaos, frustration, because it becomes a reaction versus a response based on, the values, beliefs, and how we show up, right? So I think it's really important to be able to master that, so when things start going sideways, things start feeling out of control, that we have tools to just stop, relax, breathe, take that pause. It's okay to pause in a conversation. It's okay to pause in a meeting or whatever it might be. It's okay to pause wherever you are, so that you can take back that time, so that you can respond versus react, right?
Yeah, and that is something that we haven't been taught in school.
No, absolutely.
It's not, at least not in the system where I grew up. And it's how do you learn that through the university of life, and how is that all unfolding for each and one of us, and how are the people that are coming into our lives, and the networks, and the interconnections, and their guiding points are actually influencing us. And so for me, part of what you were talking about is actually applying that. Is if I feel that there is a massive amount of energy, or perhaps, I don't want to call it negative energy, but strong energy coming towards me, then what can I do in the moment? And the one thing that I do is feel the ground underneath my feet, because that will from an energetic point of view, will take the energy and actually puts it into the earth. And then the other thing is breathing. And it's also fascinating how this whole, I took 5 courses in conscious connected breathing, and I became a breath facilitator, and breathing is the only thing that we can do consciously and unconsciously within our human body.
And it's the most important thing in life, the one thing we can't live with for the shortest amount of time.
That's right. And 2 months ago, there was somebody who introduced me to a breathing practice, and it's literally peace in everything, everything in peace. Peace in everything, everything in peace. So you breathe in peace and you breathe out peace, or love in everything, everything in love. And that to me is a declaration of the beauty of our universe and our responsibility and our participation within it through the power of breath.
What I love about it is it's beautifully simple, right? And it can be done anywhere by anyone at any time. What a beautiful practice. Thanks for sharing that. So I know we've got about 10 minutes or so left. I want to talk about what you're working on. You're working with a number of organizations in a lot of ways, but you have your own passion project called Awaken, and you've got a Drumming for Peace coming up on Peace Day in September. And I know, you and I work together on a couple of different things with Unity Earth, Holo Movement, the Sign Network for World Unity Week, which is coming up in just a few short weeks here, which leads off 99 Days to Peace Day, and you've got Drumming for Peace on Peace Day as well, coming in September. So maybe you can tell our listeners, our viewers, what is Awaken, what's your mission, and how can they get involved?
Thank you for that. The website is awaken.global, and what Awaken really is, it's a collaborating hub for those who love peace in recognition of a global transformation. And what could that look like? Not taking away from anything that anybody is already doing. And there's so many organizations and so many individuals that are doing tremendous work across the planet. And I'm saying, how can we raise more awareness around those organizations and individuals and visionaries and solutionaries and luminaries? And how can we start a greater collaboration between different organizations across municipalities, but also across the planet? And so what we have done, we've created we're at the beginning stages of creating a global mapping system where you can identify yourself based on peace development goals. So if one of my peace development goals in order to create peace is education, how can I find people in my local area that are interested in education? And how can I start connecting with them? And then how can I start connecting with them across provinces and countries and globally? And I believe that the greatest piece that we need to recognize right now is radical collaboration. And we have to get away from the what's in it for me,
the whiffum.
And I'm not saying that there is no room for that. And I'm also saying that we can't just switch it, that level of consciousness from what's in it for me, because everybody still has their own life's purpose. And I'm saying is, well, how can we recognize each other's life's purpose that is expressed through different modalities or through different teachings or through different knowledge, and how can we connect on that level and uplift everything? And I believe that, like I said, radical collaboration is the crucial piece for that. And then another piece of this awaken.global platform is going to be a 24-hour live conscious channel where we can take the information and the wisdom, not the information, the information, but mainly the wisdom and the knowledge from people across the planet and bring them together in one channel through AI-assisted voice language translation. And what I've been experiencing for specifically the last 2.5 years is that we're all working in silos. And there is a North American peace environmental movement, and then there is a European peace environmental movement, and in Africa, and we have been preaching to the converted. That's that's my opinion.
I'm with you there.
And where is the knowledge of the indigenous peoples from South America and North America and Australia and Asia, and how can we amalgamate everything into a melting pot with a vision for peace for the future? And so part of that mapping system also ask people to identify their vision for peace. And it was inspired by the Brahma Kumaris, largest female-led spiritual organization on the planet with over 1 million followers. They had asked their followers to go out into the communities in 1996 and ask people in the community, what is a vision for a better world look like for you? And then they came back and published in the book, and I don't think the book is publicly available. But I thought, well, how beautiful would it be for me to learn what peace would look like for somebody in Johannesburg or in Mumbai or in Kiev or in Stuttgart, and how can I then also recognize the underlying energy by reading somebody's vision for peace, that energy is actually there, that we all share it. It's just we have different expression of what peace might look like for each and one of us. And it's the same, and I find our society, it's almost the same. We're really good at complaining what we don't want in a relationship or in an intimate relationship, but we have a hard time to actually define what it is that we want.
So quick question about that, because we are running out of time, and I want to get to a couple of things. Do you believe that is an innate thing about being human, or do you think that that's a conditioned, call it a bad habit, that we always look at what's wrong versus what's right? Have we learned that, or is that part of human nature?
I think we've learned that. And I think that the conditioning through our educational system, it's always about comparing. It is always about, we look at different cultures, we look at their food, we look at their music, we look at their clothing, we look at their style of living, and then we take it back into our culture and we make comparison. And we say, yeah, this is good and this is not good. But it is the judgment within our conditioning that actually is that way. Yeah. And so all of a sudden we're starting to taste Indian food and like, wow, this Indian food tastes really good. And all of a sudden we find a connection point to that Indian culture, or the Italian food, or pizza. I mean, who doesn't love pizza? And so all of a sudden we have those connection points, and we're also and so I believe that we've been conditioned into that.
So this is something we can unlearn
and consciously or unconsciously, because we can blame our ancestors for all we want. It has to do with the level of consciousness at the time, and they did the best that they could do, and so we find ourselves right now in this pivotal moment in human history, where we're going to have to make a choice, and are we going to go down this path of destruction, or are we going to go down a path of kindness and empathy and collaboration and cooperation? And
I'd rather take the latter myself.
Me too. And I think that 99% of the people that are alive right now on this planet would rather go down that path, and yet it's not happening. And so again, how can we organize ourselves as effectively as those who love war and fulfill the prophecies and the teachings of those who came before us, because they've seen it, whether you want to call it heaven on earth or golden age or nirvana, whatever name. Those who came before us knew that there was going to be something greater than, and I'm not saying it's not great, but I'm also saying, well, if I look at Sudan and Palestine and Ukraine, and it's not great actually, but something is emerging, and to me it is about liberating humanity, if that makes any sense.
And really from ourselves, right? At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, from ourselves, yeah. And how can we walk through the streets and feel that sense of connectedness and compassion and being there for one another, and ultimately also joy. There is this. How can we be joyful in our relations to everything, and joy is an energy too, and it's contagious.
And I think so many people get so caught up in that rat race and the hamster wheel that they forget to be joyful or to have fun or to be peaceful. And it's just a matter of be love, be peace, be joyful.
Well, and I think
right?
that it's not necessarily that they forget, but there is no space within their daily life that allows them to step outside of that. And if I consider myself 100% energy field, and I'm occupied with economic and health issues and children and everything else that's going on in the world, I'm completely overstimulated by social media and mainstream media.
Well, that's a whole new problem facing the world today.
Then where is the space for me to actually, that I can free up for me to be in joy, and for me to feel the empathy and the compassion for other people. And so what is it that we need to do to reduce the pain points of the individual, for them to allow greater energy to move towards?
I'd like to say keep learning, keep growing, keep loving. And hey, maybe they can follow you on your website. Tell the people your website. We've got to wrap it up. Where they can find out more information about you and what you're doing.
Awaken.global is the webpage. Add your vision for peace to the planet. Sign up. If you want to support the project, become a paid member. And one of the other pieces that I wanted to add, you've spoken into it, is a global drumming event on September 21st, International Day of Peace. It's the 40th anniversary of Peace Day, and I believe that this year we all need to participate if we want to have peace on the planet. And so the idea behind it is to take the power of the drum, the original instrument of humanity, and the power of the medicine drum, to declare solidarity between each and one of us, but also to take that frequency and inform the mycelium network of Earth Mother that we're here in solidarity towards her healing, and drive the frequencies across the living waters of the planet to inform the water that we're here in solidarity. And so I'm encouraging anybody to organize a drumming event, and also put the drumming event onto our map, and we're going to have a 24-hour live broadcast throughout all time zones, where we demonstrate the people with different drum styles and different drums to participate in one global event, and that is for peace.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely, to all of our followers in our community, we'll send up more information regarding that as the time nears. And I just want to thank you, Michael, for being here on Conscious Living and sharing your vision for peace and who you are and what you think is important for the world. So you've been listening to Conscious Living on 100.5 CFRO Vancouver. And before we sign off, let's just take a minute to breathe in peace. Breathe out peace. Breathe in love. Breathe out love. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Stay real, stay conscious, be love, be peace, and until next time, take care.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Conscious Living Radio. For free show downloads, additional information about our guests and topics, or details about upcoming programs, check us out at consciousliving.radio.org.